Welcome back to London and to Orbex's True Earth GB South. We've previously looked at this scenery. Of course, we're looking at London because it is the most dense part of the map, and if you recall, we had frame rates of about 19 FPS going over central London. Of course, you may notice something a little bit different. We have the 3J FPS window in the bottom left, which shows that frame rates are currently at 24 FPS. I expect that to decline to about 19 when we're over the centre of London. I have bring up the advanced options. I have the FPS minimum. I shall take that down to 25 and the maximum at 50. And we can set the level of detail, visibility, density and cloud puff size, as well as meter FPS good and bad. Most of those settings are at the default, so I'll just save that and get back to the first window. Just looking at the settings exactly how they were in that video. Now I will turn down reflection detail to give you a comparison as we get over the centre of London. We have different options here. Obviously we have it turned off at the moment. Turn it off. As you can see, going from off to auto, we lose some detail, we gain a little bit of frame rate. You can choose maximum frames per second, so that it's going to be heavier on reducing detail to achieve a higher frame rate. And we have maximum quality, in which it will try to maintain quality over frame rates. So let's leave it off for the moment as we approach central London. Let's try to speed the aircraft up a little bit so we can get there in better time. We are of course in the Robin DR401 by Aerobask, which is a free aircraft. Now, if you're wondering what 3J FPS does, it dynamically changes level of detail, distance, etc. And what of course that does is it means that you don't have to keep looking at the settings screen and waiting for the sim to reboot with the new settings having taken place. So it's a much more convenient way of finding the right balance in the sim, and of course it should give you higher quality settings in areas with less detail and less density. And of course this is why we are testing over central London. You can see the frame rates beginning to drop down. We should start to drop below 20 FPS into about 19. But we do have maximum detail. As I said before, I have a 6700K CPU and I'm using a 1070 graphics card. So it's not a top-end powerful machine, but it's at the same time reasonably capable. So that's what it looks like. Leave it off. Let's turn to auto. Just look at the detail as we go to auto and see how much detail we just lost. But we have gained significant frames. So 25 maximum FPS, we gain a little bit more, but again we're losing detail. And then maximum quality, we're gaining that detail back. It looks like it's pretty much the same maximum quality to off. Now obviously there are plenty of settings that you can use in order to get 3J FPS to perform exactly how you like. I think this is the ideal way of handling settings, so that instead of just creating settings that are universal. You're just giving it guidelines which it then attempts to create the best experience possible given those settings. So we'll come up to central London, where it's especially dense, and we're looking at 19 FPS as expected. As I'm looking around, there's a little bit of a stutter there. It's not fluid. As I'm looking around at auto, it's much more fluid. Still get these stutters when looking to the right, but in general it's actually a pretty solid experience. And we switch to maximum FPS. That's really fluid, not a problem. Maximum quality, again, it's not quite as fluid. It's not bad, but it's not quite as fluid as it was before. And off is pretty much the same, 21 FPS. So it's about the same whether it's off or at maximum quality. Now I wouldn't use maximum FPS. I don't see the point of maximum quality at this time unless I can tweak the settings and make that more reasonable. So auto would probably be the setting that you would look at. So as we go over central London, we'll expect to get 19 FPS. At this point, what I'm going to do is bring that reflection detail all the way down to minimal, and you can see there's a huge difference in frames. I can't say there's a noticeable difference when reflection detail has dropped. So now on auto you're looking at 35, 36, at off 28, 29, and that is much more fluid. So the biggest change that you're going to make is to turn off or set reflection detail down to minimal. Again, I can't see any difference here. I have noticed in the past that it makes a difference in certain circumstances. Around Genoa, I've noticed there's a significant difference with reflections in the Mediterranean, but in general I don't think you're going to notice a difference. So we're looking at about 26, 27 maximum FPS. Again, it doesn't make that much of a difference in terms of fluidity, but you go back to off or maximum quality and you get a much better experience. So that is how FreeGA FPS works, and that's an idea on how you're going to get a little bit better quality. I would say if we're going to take a quick look at settings, high HDR is, I would say, the minimum. I don't think you want to go below that if you can avoid it. Texture quality for me is at maximum. Any higher than that and I get stutters, some really significant stutters. Number of world objects I have at maximum. If you have a problem, you bring it down to high, and you lose a little bit of detail, but it's not that noticeable. Once you get down to medium, you can really notice it on the Aerobask scenery. You start to see a lot of gaps where buildings should be. So maximum or high would be the two settings I'll be looking at. Reflection detail, there are certain scenarios where that is going to be nice, but in general I would have it down at minimal. I don't see a big difference in reflections. It's just certain circumstances where you'll notice something. So yeah, that is how FreeGA FPS works. It is useful just to have it in the corner there, just to give you that option of being able to reduce the load in order to gain a little bit of FPS without having to go into the settings screen and having to basically reload the entire sim, or so it seems. So it's a very useful tool to have. and it is freeware. I'll leave a link in the description, and feel free to have a look at it, and I'll leave your comments in the description, in the comment section below, as to your experience with it. And hope you found it useful, hope you found it interesting, and as always, feel free to like, comment and subscribe.